Hey everyone, this is Ole Sharanki from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast. Good morning, good morning, good morning all. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. As always, I'm your good friend Ole Sharanki here with Festus Samoye. Festus, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. I just realized you say good morning. Sometimes it's afternoon.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, especially since we international.
Hey, but it's morning somewhere, right? The sun is rising somewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, welcome to LYS EduSteps Game Changers. This is our second Game Changers episode. Game Changers is where we talk to amazing people doing amazing things and just get a glimpse of what they've done, what they're doing, and how did they make their journey from where they started to where they are. We are very fortunate and honored this morning to have Dr. Ugochi Emenaha with us. Dr. Ugochi, how you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you, guys. I am doing well.
So honored to have you here with us this morning. And let's go quickly into how this all came about. I was in the classroom teaching. An art teacher who we are so blessed at LYS to have people who find us and love what we do and just take on to what we do and like, hey, this is a person who's doing something you guys are doing. You want to talk to him? It's like, okay. And then we'll meet him and it'll be the most amazing person doing some amazing stuff on their own. And so she sent me your information and I had just, Festus can tell you, like, my head is just in a million places, which is funny because Festus's head is in a million and one places. So, I had
How do we work together? This is ridiculous.
I don't know. It's obviously greater than us.
Yeah.
So, your name and number is in my phone, and thank you so much, Miss Melina. Your name and number is in my phone. I'm just doing whatever. And, I have a quick second. Because she'd asked me, she was like, did you call my friend? And I'm like, no, I did it. I didn't call your friend. I'm so sorry. And then I finally, in the middle of class, right, we're going, and I'm just like, man, let me call this woman. Because the kids were actually like stable. The sheep were sheeping. I go and I call, and we have an amazing talk. And I'm like, all right, boom, bet. Let Festus know. And then the same thing kind of happened to Festus. Festus just got, I was like, hey man, did you hit up old girl, man? She's awesome, right? He's like, I didn't run it. And so he finally gets a chance and he is like, bro, yeah, this is the truth, man. And then Festus goes so far as goes, yeah, we're going to do a thing. Are you good? Are you good with doing a thing like next week? And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's go. So just thank you so much for taking the time, seeing what we're doing and loving what we're doing and joining us this morning. We appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. So I think, Miss Melina, on the other side, what was happening was I am the den leader of my son's Boy Scout troop. Okay. I've been the den leader for like past 4 years, which her son is also in the troop. I was like humble bragging one day and I was like, yeah, I finished my doctorate. And everybody was like cheering and excited. And then she asked me what it was about. And then she was like, you know what? I know some people that really are doing what you're talking about, because my dissertation is on the lack of African-American male teachers in elementary schools. Yeah. So she was like, I have some people, I'm going to connect them with you. Just, is it okay if I share your contact with them? And I said, yeah, go ahead. And it was after the research was completed, I had already defended my dissertation, but something they tell you while you're doing your doctorate is that you get to a point where you're like, man, that meme where you're throwing up all the papers and it's Friday. You get to that point, but because you're so passionate about what you're doing, you end up still writing after you graduate. So she had told me that, they're still doing the things you're talking about. And I was like, okay, I'm into it. I want to be with people who are on this level of education. And then I didn't even know that you guys are at Kennedy, which is I grew up right by Hollow. So I went to Elsick. But
wow.
Yeah, dog in the house.
Full circle.
That's what's up.
Circle. Wow, look at that. You couldn't make this stuff up. What year did you graduate?
2001.
Okay, so wow, she would have been there with Maurice Festus.
Yeah. So Maurice graduated 2000.
Yeah.
So she graduated Tony's class. So Tony Hills.
Was that Tony? I thought they were 2003.
Or were they 2000? No.
Yeah.
Tony Hills.
They remember they were a game before us, like they were close to state. That was Tony, Simeon, Ray Miller, Rashawn.
No, so she graduated Joel's class. You know Joel, right?
Well, I thought Joel was 02.
Was Joel 02?
Joel was 02. She graduated. Was that Tony Styles? You know, the DJ?
Tony Styles.
Tony Styles? I can't remember who else would have been there. McCoy? We're here just throwing names out. This is what
I'm not no.
Okay.
I was quiet. I was a Revy, and so I probably didn't know.
Oh, you were a Revy.
I was
in the band, so we played for y'all.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
It is full circle. Wow.
I tell you, man, that is crazy. Yeah, and so we've tried. Well, and we have our soapbox moments too, where we start talking about the days and going back and helping. But either way, trust me, soapbox moments for all three of us will be coming later on. But first, I just want to start off by asking. I asked you where you got your bachelor's, where you got your master's, and where you got your doctorate. And I looked at the schools and I was like, man, those are three amazing stories you must have. So tell us about your education journey. Tell us about going through not just college, even high school. Like, what was it like when you graduated from high school?
Okay, so this is my soapbox moment. So I'm gonna try to condense it into a very neat and tidy bow package because I might get a little passionate about some things. So when my parents they are immigrant parents. My dad passed away recently, so they both were new to the country, did not know anybody, and when they started raising us, they were new to public education because in Nigeria, most people go to a private school and when you're in the school system in Nigeria, you're in the school system. So the teachers are not really, you don't question the authority, you don't question what the teachers do, you just do what they say. So I remember when my brother was in first grade and I was in fifth grade, and we got a letter that said he was in special education or he qualified for special education. And my mom, being the Christian woman that she was like, we're just gonna pray against this and this is that. And I was like, oh, hey, but we can pray, but we still got to do something. And this is me at fifth grade. I was like, we still have to do something. Wow. We can't just, and she was like, no, we're just going to pray. So I thought to myself, we went to Hunter's Glen in Fort Bend. Okay. And I thought to myself that if I go to his classroom, ask the teacher if I can read to him, then I'll help him get smarter. Like, that's all I have to do. Yeah. So I did some creative negotiating with my fifth grade teacher. And I said, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. And then I walked all the way down to his classroom and I said, hey, Miss Walker, my teacher said I could come and help and volunteer and read to your class. And she was like, oh, that's so sweet of you, of course. So I ended up reading to him. And I think that is the moment or the moments that led me into education. Wow. So fast forward, like years later, we move because from sixth grade to 10th grade, I went to, because of gerrymandering and rezoning districts, I went to a different school every year, but we stayed in the exact same house. We lived in Missouri City, we never moved, but because of racism and stereotypes that were around, Villa Ridge has had some drama from way back when. The school was overcrowded. They didn't want us to go there, but they also didn't want us to go to these predominantly white schools like Dulles and Quail Valley, the schools that had space. So every year they would rezone us, and then we would get to the school and we would hear and see people saying, you guys don't belong here. We don't want these Black kids here. We don't want these brown kids here. We don't want this. And then the next year we would get a letter in the mail saying, oh, you're not going to Dulles anymore. Now you're going to Quail Valley. And this happened all the way until 10th grade. By 10th grade, my parents had moved. We moved to A-Leaf. And I started going to LSIC. So I went to LSIC like my sophomore year. I started going my sophomore year. And I remember just going through so much, like, I think now I would call it grief or depression or just like growth. But at the time, everybody around me, it was just moody teenager. Yeah. But the fact is I had grown accustomed to a group of people and my voice and my person in that community. And we just up and left. It was like my mom just woke up one day. Of course, in her head, she had been doing the work, but she just woke up one day and was like, y'all, we're moving. Pack your stuff, let's go. And I was like, what? I didn't even say bye to my friends. It was really hard for me. And I just realized, again, at that point, that's another pivotal point in my education journey, that your community, your friends, even at a young age, are important in your mental health.
Absolutely.
So then fast forward, I go to LSIC, obviously, and it's an amazing school. I find my place through the extracurricular activities I was doing. So I was on the dance team and I found my voice. I found a group of girls, now women, who had my back and were my friend because they were my friend, not for any other. There was no, I mean, we were 15, 16. They weren't getting anything out of it except for me, you know, and I valued that so much. So I started to understand, like, hey, I have a place regardless of where I go. So then I graduate, I'm in the top, I think the top 10% at that time, and maybe it's still the same. You can go to any Texas public school. So I wanted to go to UT. I wanted to go to school with my friends. And my mom was like, she was like, it's a party school. You can't go there. You should go to Michigan.
Use the voice. Use the voice. That's
what we're trying to do.
We highly encourage.
You still hear it. You still hear it that way.
Accuracy.
So,
I still hear it that way. Like, and so I go to Michigan, which, even though it's a phenomenal school, it is also very much a party school. That's not. It's a state college, so it is. And again, the same kind of pivotal moment happened. I found a group of women that I'm still friends to this day. And I'm not going to do the calculations because, you know, I'm mature, but still young, you know, so I'm just going to tell you exactly when. But I met these women, we bonded so much. And again, I'm realizing like the connections and the relationships are what is driving my education.
Absolutely.
And I remember I wanted to be an attorney because, you know, Nigerians, you have to be an attorney, an engineer, or a doctor. Those are your only three options. And I remember having a conversation again with my uncle, who was an attorney in Michigan, telling him, listen, this is not for me. I want to be a teacher. I know the salary, I know that, but that's what I want to do. It's been a calling. It is, you know, I'm not sure if I can say God on here, but God has asked me to do this. And I'm like, again, negotiating with my uncle because he helped me a lot while I was in college. And I'm telling him, listen, I'm not going to be he was like, you can be an attorney and a teacher. Just go to law school. Just go to law school. And then you can, and I'm like, but that's not what I want to do. That's not what I was taught to do. And I'm remembering all these pivotal moments. So at this point, it's junior year and I applied to Teach for America. I did not get accepted, which I was so upset.
Okay, I'm sorry. You didn't. What is up?
Yes.
Who are they allowing in this thing?
Yes, thank you. And what was really annoying is I actually interned at the U.S. Department of Education.
My goodness.
2 years while I was at Michigan. So I'm like, listen, y'all are confusing because I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna let this hold me down. I was really upset at the time. But then I ended up moving back to Houston, working for this random organization, and the organization failed. And I just walked up to Kip, like I was just driving. This is before the internet was barely a thing at this point. So I just like walked up to the school and I was like, hey, I'm looking for a job. And they're like, okay, cool, you're hired. That's short story long. That's how that happened. I fell in love with teaching, y'all. Like I live and breathe in. It is, you know, when you're reading the scriptures, you just know that God says that people are giving gifts. This is a gift for me. I literally, when I see kids, I tell my friend this, if a kid is walking down the street and I'm driving, I will stop and look like, wait a minute, do they have an adult with them? Are they okay? Those are my people, you know? So I decided then to get my master's in education. And I said, if Barack wins the presidency, I am going to Chicago. I'm moving to Chicago. So he won. Moved to Chicago, loved it. And the only reason I moved back is because after having a son, Chicago's expensive. It's mad expensive. Like, I'm not even gonna give you all the numbers, but I said, I can't do this, you know, by myself. I need to be around family. Again, here's that key word coming back, community and connection. So I came back here and I had always said to myself, like, I want to get a doctorate. I want to learn. I'm passionate about learning. And I'm going to look for a school that is going to provide the opportunity for me to be hybrid, because I wanted my son to see me doing the work. I wanted him to see me in school. I wanted him to be a part of this degree. So I applied to Baylor, got accepted, thankfully. Halfway through the journey, my dad passed away. And my dad was a pastor of a church, and it was very, like, I'll spare you other details because I don't want us to start crying, but I found out in the most random way. And I remember telling my son, I was like, you got to go to the house. He went to heaven. And he was like, is he coming back? And I was like, no, he's not coming back. He went to heaven. And, it was a moment where I thought to myself, like, I'm going to give up. Like, I can't continue my degree. Like, this is too much. And one of my professors, I don't think she even knew what was happening. She just sent me a message and she said, listen, I'm proud of you for showing up. Like, you're doing the work. And she told me that this was her first year teaching that course. Her father had passed away, and she literally went to the funeral and then taught the class the first day. And she was like, I want you to know that I'm encouraging you because I see myself in you. Like, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward again to the end of my program. I'm in a fellowship that I randomly applied for. I'm such a nerd. I like sit at home at night. I like search, fellowships, like, writing opportunities, learning. Like, that's that's what I do for fun. So
I Festus.
That sounds like me. You know what I mean? A certain degree.
So I applied to this fellowship. I got in, and I thought to myself, like, everybody gets in. This wasn't a big deal, but they didn't. And it was like a few of us in the program. I'm at a job that is highly toxic, and I'm telling my mentor, because they assign you a mentor. And I was like, if you're a praying person, then just pray for me, because I got to get out of this job. I'm starting to lose my passion for education. She was like, oh, no, we can't have that. And she was like, I have a job. I know somebody was telling me they were looking for this opportunity at Rice. So again, community connections. And she's like, listen, you have to apply for it. I applied for it. There were some hills and valleys. And I was telling her, I was like, I don't know, it's not looking good. And she was like, no, don't worry, I got you. I'm gonna fight for you. I'm gonna advocate for you. And she did. And like now, starting in 2 days, I'll be the associate director of the Master's in Teaching at Rice University. So short story long, that's my journey.
Amazing.
Wow. That is definitely amazing. I mean, it's so much that we love to touch on here at LYS, because, so often, when we were younger, and sometimes I think this is still the advice, it's like, just go to college, you'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And sometimes that is not helpful when you're facing a lot of challenges. And just kind of like you were saying, just having family there, friends, people supportive, professors, teachers who come to you as a person rather than like, you're a product in this factory,
Right.
Where your degree is just a stamp to say, hey, you did it, you came. It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole once again. These days, many families are busy but want personalized attention. We at Laddering Your Success understand this dilemma and have created a unique approach to help guide you and your child with personal development tools to build a life of purpose. This intimate approach is helpful for those parents that feel the need to have a focused heart-to-heart conversation deciding on the next steps after high school. We provide individual post-secondary planning, virtual customized college and career counseling, and scholarship guidance and planning. Our one-on-one sessions are tailored to each individual student to maximize their potential in the post-secondary realm. With our guidance, your child will be able to make their dreams a reality. Don't wait. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to business on this podcast.
So let me just kind of backtrack a little bit. So obviously Nigerian parents, so big on education. You wanted to be a lawyer, but you ended up kind of going on this other path. How prepared were you? Like you talked about your uncle kind of helping you out. Was he like instrumental in like helping you go, or did your parents have degrees, or like kind of talk about that journey, because they didn't grow up here, obviously. They were new to the American system. Kind of talk to us about that journey, about like preparedness and kind of knowing what you wanted to be and how that worked out.
So preparedness wise, so both of my mom has a doctorate in pharmacy. She went to TSU from beginning, like bachelor's all the way to her doctorate. My dad went to Philander Smith, a small HBCU in Arkansas. So they had degrees, but I don't know if this is like a cultural thing or maybe it was just my parents. They didn't really talk about things. Like they didn't really tell us their experience, tell us their story. So I didn't know, like if we would talk about financial aid, I didn't know like, hey, don't take out $1 million in loans because it might be fun to like, go buy something extra with your return, but you got to pay that back. Like that's going to hurt you in the long run. Nobody had those conversations with me. And so I made those mistakes. I mean, I think mostly my master's degree, because in my bachelor's, thankfully I was able to get scholarships. And my uncle, who was, he didn't really pay for my degree, but he paid for me. Like he would give me money for lunch and for clothes and all those kind of things. So I had that support. But I think that was one thing that my parents just expected, like, just go to college, just figure it out, and even when we talk about like community, my mom was big on, and I love her, and I've told her this before, but she would tell you that you didn't need friends. And she would say, you don't need people, like you're not going to school to make friends, you're going to school to learn. And I'm like, that's not true. And I remember telling her one day, I was like, Jesus had 12 friends and he stayed with them. And these were like his road. They were willing to die for this man.
They died for him. They wrote.
Yes, this is not, it's like, you got to hit them with that church so they can listen to you. And so I think that was another thing that I was not prepared to understand, the amount of the need for community, the need for people in your life. Like there is nothing on this earth, I believe, that you can do by yourself. And side note, I think that's a big reason why teachers are in education, because of the community that it provides. But that's another topic. And then I think when I got to college, my uncle was there, he was very supportive, and he talked to me about finances then. And he was like, you're going to want to make money. You're going to want to have things, and teachers don't make money. And I, again, thought to myself, like, God will provide. That's that faith that goes to the first grade classroom and says, listen, I'm going to teach all your kids for you. You're not doing it right. I got it. Let me teach these kids. So that same kind of faith shows up again. And I'm like, I got it. God will take care of me. So I think I answered your question. Was I supported by my family? Yes. And also no, because I don't think they talked too much about financial aid, but I don't think they knew. Like my mom she paid for it. She's, pretty badass. She paid for her degrees, all of them on her own. She didn't take out a loan while she was working. And of course that was a cheaper time, right? But she was pregnant with all of us. Like the 8 years that she was in school was the 8 years that she was having all of my siblings. So in her head, you can do anything. Like you don't need to take out a loan. You don't need to apply for these scholarships. You can work and pay for it. But she didn't really talk to me about how she did it. So,
Awesome, man. Man, that first generation, man. That's them first generation parents. I feel like all immigrant kids have like these stories of like their parents basically doing like superhuman things. Like you did that? Like, what do you mean? Of course, like. Shoot, I stubbed my toe. I ain't getting out the bed.
Exactly.
Hey, LYS fam. It's Ole. Just wanted to take a quick break to let you know that even though the cost of college can be daunting, the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook can assist you in realizing your dreams. You can identify and apply for scholarships using the information, advice, and resources in our comprehensive guide. Also, we've provided a template for a successful scholarship essay to help you stand out from the crowd. Don't allow student loan debt to control you. Get your copy of the LYS Scholarship Guide ebook right away to take charge of your destiny. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to that fire conversation.
So I wanted to ask quickly, you wrote 2 books while you were getting your doctorate?
Yes, that is true.
Just quickly tell us, because that may motivate someone or inspire someone, a young person. How are you able to write 2 books while you were getting your doctorate degree?
So the thing about writing a book, whether it's a children's book or a devotional or the Odyssey, like some sort of like large novel type book, is that you're not just writing it at one time. It's not a linear process. Like you don't start on January 1st and then you finish February 15th. The ideas as a storyteller, which I think all of us are, especially in this group and coming from a culture that is very oratory, and that is very much like we all have these similar stories, because although our parents didn't talk to us about things, they told us stories, and we experienced those stories in different ways, especially with, like, you think about the cola nut, like the cola nut, and like it doesn't speak English, they'll tell you that, like, you can only say it in its native tongue. And that's a story, that's an experience, right? So I think that is something. Oh yes, so you want me to put my books up? I'll do that. I'm a storyteller. Let me get to that point. I'm gonna show it to you. So the cola nut does not speak English, but you can hear these stories from each wedding that you go to, each party. You hear these stories that they're telling before they open up the cola nut, like a ritual to like kind of warm up the mic kind of thing, for those of you who don't know what it is. But so I would say that both of these books were not written while I was in my doctorate program. They were written over time. They were written through my experience. So the first one, this book is beautiful. This was published in 2021. So this is right after the pandemic. And I would say that I was writing it in the pandemic. And I had these pictures written, or drawn, I should say, by a student. So I asked one of my students, I said, can you draw pictures for my book? And he was like, yeah, of course. And I told him I would pay him a certain amount, and he was like, "Oh, you're gonna pay me?" Like, I'm like, "Yes, you have value." Like, don't think that at all. So that started there, but the book is about bullying and being talked about because of your name. And this young girl is in school, and people are making fun of her. First of all, she's geeked. She's excited to go to school. Her parents are passionate about learning. She gets to school and people are making fun of her. And she meets a girl at the end of the book who really encourages her. I won't give it all away because you can get it on Amazon, and it is an ebook and a hard copy if you would like. But she meets this girl who kind of encourages her and helps her give her confidence. And if you listen to the stories that I've kind of been sharing with you guys, that's my life story, right?
Yeah.
Meeting people who give you encouragement. So again, although the story was written while I was in my doctoral program, it was created through life. And then the second one, this one is called Brave. Again, so as a single parent, I will say that one of my biggest challenges has been obviously raising a young man and raising him to be brave. And there's something that I told him, it's kind of like a reframe of a Bible verse. And I said, like I always tell him, I'm smart and I'm brave and I love myself. And it's reframing of Philippians 4:13 that says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I tell him that all the time. So this book, again, is about all of the people, from his Boy Scout troop leader to my brother to a friend that for the longest time he thought was his like real life uncle. He thought, and I'm like, no, that's my friend's husband. Like you're not really related to him. But he was so connected to these men, these leaders, that he was able to be brave and experience and find things. And I kind of twisted the end. I'll save that again because it is on Amazon ebook, and it is on Biblio Library, which is the state of Texas free online library. So you can check this one out there as well.
That's awesome.
But he experiences these moments with these men where he's looking for something or someone, and they're not able to give him what he's looking for, but they are able to give him something. And that's so, again, the story was written in 2022, but it's something I experienced over the 8 years of raising my son. And I think like yesterday, he said this. I was telling him about one of his mentors, and I'm a big proponent of therapy. Kids, adults, everybody get into it. Jesus in therapy saves. But he was like, it's too much. I have too many mentors. I have all these people, like, and I'm like in my head, just like, yes, of course, that's a great, I'm proud of myself for that. But he was like frustrated. I have this person, and then this person at school, and then this person. I'm like, yes. So.
That is awesome.
That's dope. It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
So let's talk about what you currently do, because that's a big thing with LYS, the be, no, do, right? So what do you currently do? Is it passion? Is it paycheck? Or is it purpose? Or is it a combination of those things?
So like I said, I'm starting my new job at Rice on Monday, and it is my hope that it is all three of those. I will say the past two positions that I've had were definitely paycheck. And I think the reason I transitioned out of those positions so quickly is because I wasn't passionate about them. As educators, especially in educators, teachers, get out of the classroom, your skill sets transfer to so many different levels. So do not be intimidated to apply outside of the classroom. But remember that, you know, we're fed by community, we're fed by connections and mentorships. So make sure the job that you apply for feeds into that. So my hope now is that my job with Rice is something that is passion. It's based on education. I'm supporting teachers. It's obviously paycheck, like, you know, we got to eat. And then it is aligned to my purpose. It is aligned. And I did a lot of work while I was in this current position, writing down all of the things that I like to do, all of the things that I enjoy, and then aligning them to the jobs that I applied for. So I think definitely passion, paycheck, and purpose for all three. But really what I'm doing on the side is kind of thinking, as we get older, you know, you start getting into your late 30s and you think you're old, but I start thinking about the future. I'm like, okay, where do I want to be when I retire? And I want to write. I want to write books. I want to write stories. So I've been working on that, and that is definitely a passion. I have another book that's coming out in September, and then another one that's coming out in November. And both of those books, I'm fully funding them myself. I just want people to see it. I want people to read the books. And that's why I put Brave on Biblio Library, because the story is what's important to me. Like, yes, I would like to, you know, get some money, obviously, from selling my books, but it's important to me that your story is told. It's important to me that people, because I really do believe that we are overcomers of all of the things that we struggle with by our experiences and sharing our experiences with others.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, you're talking about and kind of going around this space that is actually a really critical space right now, is that, you know, teacher shortage, teacher transition, you know what I mean? It's huge. And, you know, kind of going into this new role at Rice where you're helping educators get more educated so they could be better educators. It's kind of one of those things that's definitely like full circle and also interesting as you kind of combine entrepreneurship and education, right? Because everybody's talking entrepreneurship, consulting, and it's funny because a podcast I love to listen to is called Social Proof. Shout out David Chance, Donnie Wiggins. You know what I'm saying? I really love Social Proof. But anyway, you know, they kind of talk about that. And so just the fact of like, of you know, kind of almost monetizing your skill sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
also the thing is like be the whole package, the brand, the marketing, all of those different types of things to get your story out there, right? And another person I'm you know, kind of a fan of, Dame Dash, you know what I mean? Shout out Dame Dash. The Rock is in the building. No, I was thinking
the same thing.
I had to do it.
Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing. No, I'm joking. So anyway, but he was like, you know, you could have the best product, but if nobody knows you had that product, right? Then what are you doing? And so, you know, I think this is something that's really interesting about being Black, being a creative, you know, and kind of navigating between professional and entrepreneur, because now the word is so diluted. It's like entrepreneur, you mean online scammer? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like everybody's into 419. We're all doing it.
Everybody.
Don't be Nigerian. Yeah, you know, 419.
I love that.
So I definitely think that's huge. So anyway, all that to say, I definitely hear how all of those elements of passion, paycheck, and purpose are combining on an ongoing journey, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the thing that is so huge, that a person could be a game changer based on what they've done, but then also still be on a journey. You know what I mean? And so I think, you know, if, you know, somebody wants to take something away from this, that's kind of one element that you could take from this.
Hey, LYS fam, it's Ole. Thanks so much for listening to LYS. I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk to the parents. That's right, mom and dad, parents. Prepare your child for their best educational fit after high school with our comprehensive LYS Parents Guidebook. Our helpful guide includes a range of activities designed to help you better understand your child's unique gifts and abilities. Additionally, we provide valuable insights into the student loan debt crisis and offer practical tips on how to avoid accumulating large amounts of debt. Our ebook also includes a wealth of information on scholarships, grants, and payment exemptions that can help guide your child towards a bright and successful future. With our expert guidance, you can rest assured that your child is well prepared to make informed decisions about their education and career path. Don't let your child's future be in jeopardy. Invest in their future today by downloading the LYS Parents Guidebook. Simply go to lys.com/parents to get your copy today. Now let's get back to the show because you know it's some good topics.
So we'll throw one last question out there. And then again, we want to get all your info. So we want to know how people can follow you on social, where they can get the books from. And of course, all this info is in the show notes as well. But if you are graduating high school today, what is some advice you give yourself that you think other people need to hear?
So I think part of it would have to we would have to start with social media, and I would have to tell kids or myself that do not put on the internet what you don't want to be there forever. Like, that goes without saying. I think we talk about this story and branding, and it's an experience, it's a life lesson. But I would not let my students, myself, any high school senior graduate without knowing that the things that you put on the internet, they will be there forever. And they are creating a brand for you, right? Like, a lot of us, like millennials, will say, thank God there wasn't social media when we were in high school and college, wilding out, doing all this, whatever, this wahala. Nobody saw it, so no big deal, right? But they don't have that same luxury. So remember that the things that you put out are permanent, and they're telling a story about you, especially when you're looking for a career. People search, like, the cool thing about LinkedIn is you can see the people that search for you. And as I was up in the journey of applying, I would see it will pop up, like, somebody looked for you as such and such school district. Somebody looked for you here. So they're watching you all holistically. They're seeing every part of you. So make sure you own what you put out there. And then I would also say, stay true to your voice. There's this kind of movement of, and I won't say it's an anti-college movement, but it's just a movement of you don't have to go to college. And that's true. But as a person who is in the position I'm in because of my degrees, I can't sign on to that. So what I can tell you is that college gives you a choice. It doesn't make you any smarter than you already are. It just opens up the doors. It's like going into the candy store. Would you rather just be able to buy Skittles, or would you rather be able to choose from Skittles, gummy bears? And Skittles are cool. It's a great candy, but you could get a college degree and you can have more choices. It doesn't make it better or less, because we need beauticians, we need mechanics, we need practitioners, the doctors need the nurses need the nursing assistants. It's a whole, we all need each other. So the last part advice that I would give myself is community is key. Community is how you will find out for yourself, does my passion drive me to college? Does my passion drive me to, connecting with people in an informal, like, social media way? And then does my passion drive me to a different career? So I think connecting with other people, don't do it solo, because there's no way that you can be successful regardless of what you decide if you're trying to do it by yourself. There really isn't this idea of a self-made millionaire or a self-made person. Nobody is self-made, even if you're not a person of faith. I look at Kim Kardashian, like, people will tell her she's a self-made millionaire, or Beyonce, they'll say but she's really not. Like, they had access to experiences, to money, to all of these things that help them become successful. And I'm in no way on their level, but even from my story, you can see I'm not self-made. Like, I'm a product of all of the people from LSIG to, Michigan, all of those people that I experienced. And even with my son and the book that I wrote, he, no matter how successful he gets as an adult, he cannot say that he's self-made, right? There are so many people that poured into him. As he said, he has so many mentors. Like, you can't do it on your own.
For sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. It's so crazy, because that's definitely a theme that I heard throughout this entire Game Changers was community. And I think I would love to send you some stuff that we talked about because it's so powerful. And it's very, very powerful. Festus knows I'm a big fan. So A-Leaf recently built the A-Leaf Community Center.
Oh, it's sick. Like I
It's
almost
amazing.
cried. I
And
almost cried, y'all.
yeah. And so I've been, we did some stuff for LYS there. We took some pictures and stuff. We used the lab and stuff, the photo studio, the video studio, and we ended up doing a mentor call on the power of community and how a lot of that is important. How do you actually build a community? Because I think especially learning with Festus and so many people, you see how much has been invested, right? I mean, if you really look at the United States from like the 50s to the 60s, they literally just had documents, books on this is how we are going to set this thing up, right? As they learn, they put it out of here. If you're going to build a community, this 200-page document is what you need. And so I just want to take a couple seconds to kind of jump into, speaking on community, to jump into your dissertation for your doctorate. It was about the importance of Black males in elementary.
Yes.
And one of me and Festus's favorite videos is the Conspiracy Against Black Boys by Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. I'm not sure.
Sorry, that's my mom is trying to remind us to pray. So
no. Yes.
Let me turn it off.
No worries. So I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that and what were some of the key points you found in your studies?
Okay, so like you said, my dissertation was on the lack of Black male teachers in education, and specifically in elementary education. And through my research, I had to expand it because there wasn't a lot of writing on K-5 teachers. So I had to expand it to K-8 so that I could collect more research. And so that's one thing that I found. It's not something that people are researching. I think a lot of times, and this was my assumption going in, that a lot of times Black males and males generally go into high school or leadership positions because they want to expand their reach. They feel like, looking back at the time where I struggled, I was like 13, 14, and I want to go back and help 13, 14 age up, And my hypothesis and my inference was that if we're able to do that before we get to 13 or 14, the impact will be greater. So I started off kind of with that belief. And then I interviewed 5 teachers across from HISD, from KIP, from Fort Bend, and Katy. And I will say this, the similarity between all of them, whether they were new teachers or olders, when I asked them to tell me about their ideal school, their ideal job and career, they never talked about money. They never said, I want to make sure I'm making 6 figures and I want to make sure I have a big house in River Oaks. Like, they didn't say that. They talked about impacting either teachers or impacting students the way that somebody impacted them. So one of my recommendations as part of the dissertation process was that when we look at recruiting teachers, one, we need to go back to high schools and undergrads and talk about how and make teaching look sexy, right? We can't make it like, oh, you're going to struggle and teachers don't make, because why would somebody want to get into that, right? We have to make it impactful. We have to make it look good. And then 2, we have to highlight the mentorships, the relationships that people want. And you guys, I know you might have some connections. I know, Ole, you're a teacher as well, but a lot of what we do every day is based on the joy that we get from talking to our co-teachers, the joy that we get from supporting other people. When I started teaching, I knew the salary that I was going to make, and I was okay with it. Not to say teachers shouldn't get paid more, but what was driving me every day was that I was impacting someone. So that's what we need to focus on when we're recruiting and trying to retain teachers, whether they're Black or Hispanic or white or Korean or first generation or not. We need to make sure that we're making it look good holistically.
Yeah.
Yes, increase the pay, but also let's talk about the respect that teachers are getting. Let's talk about the value added. This is one of my soapbox. I saw this after one of the shootings, unfortunately, in the United States. I don't even have to pinpoint one because there's so many. There was a teacher on Donors Choose that said, I was at such and such school and I'm going back next year and I want to raise money for a wellness center in my classroom. And I was like, skirt, stop. Why is she raising money? Whatever she wants, the school should already give it to her. You want a margarita machine in your school? Cool, sis, you got it. Like whatever, like those are simple things that are not. This woman experienced trauma at its highest level and was willing to go back to school and has to get on a crowdsourcing website to get. Oh no, sis, you need to get whatever you're supposed to get, whatever you want. And that's what we're talking about. It's not just money. Like it's things like that. If you, after, experiencing these, like whatever side of the aisle you're on about weapons and whether or not we should have them, what are we doing when the kids come back? Kids should have a mandated, like kids, teachers, custodians, everyone in the building should have a mandated 12 sessions of counseling. After that, you can continue if you want to, but we're giving these to you. You have to have these 12, whether they're group sessions or one-on-one, you have to go to them. Teachers should have a mandated increase in like your school supplies, all of the things you experienced, this trauma. Listen, when you go back to your school is completely funded. We're going to give you a free membership to the gym. Any, grocery stores, you can go shopping like for a year. All of this is free. That's how we surround teachers. That's how we build community without necessarily increasing pay. Now, yes, we should increase pay. I don't even know if this is what y'all asked me, but I'm like,
ma'am, you are fine.
You're on the box. You're on the box.
No, let the box flow. Let it flow.
But I think when we talk about increasing pay, we have this like, A-LEAF was probably one of the most high before all of this COVID issues. A-LEAF was probably one of the most well-paid districts in Houston. But it's not just about having a good starting pay, right? So you can start them off at 55,000, 60, whatever you want. Hell, you can start them off at 70. But if 10 years from now, that teacher has been teaching for 10 years, they got all these certifications, they have a master's degree, please do not tell me that their salary has only increased by $1,000 and you're giving them a 500 stipend. That's the problem. The salary can start at 50,000 if you want to, but make sure each year with each level of experience, with each degree, with each connection, with each asset that they're bringing, that you're increasing their salary. Because that's what I feel like is going to happen. We're going to say, okay, mandated teachers' salary starts at 50,000, and then 20 years from now, we're going to be right back at the same issue because teachers are still making 50,000 starting, So I'm back.
No, that's super dope, and it's interesting because it's you're kind of touching on the concept of like meritocracy, right? Like if somebody is putting in that work, then they should get compensated for what they pay for, and this is one of the major troubles with education, including just deciding on what to do after high school, right? Is like if a lot of people are saying now, oh, you don't need college because of the student loan debt crisis. But the reality is there are additional benefits that are wrapped up in pursuing that education, right? One, namely being the people that you meet, right? When you go to a certain institution of learning, there are certain people that you meet, and because they're all interested in learning, right? Yep. You create a certain rapport based around that, and the information and the conversation in the library at 10 p.m. where you're talking about some major thing, and you're like, well, let me go get a book audit, and then you're like, oh, so I definitely think that we're definitely going to need a part two. We're going to have to come back and do a part two. But we appreciate you being here, for blessing us with your presence, telling us about your books. Again, brave and beautiful. You can get them on Amazon. The link's going to be in the show notes, and also link to her website and her LinkedIn and her email address. Are there any closing remarks, any last words?
I feel like now I was going to joke and say something like, let's close the church doors. But I think for me, you guys can definitely follow me on social media. I have to take intermittent, like people are intermittent fasting. I have to take intermittent breaks from social media so that I don't get overwhelmed by it, because so much stuff is happening in the world. But you can follow me on my Instagram is Urban Kid in the City, and I post free things that I'm doing with my son. So that's, again, when you talk about experiences and community, I think it's really important for him to be out in the city and see things, especially being an only child. to see things and build relationships at an early age. So if you're a parent and you're looking for things to do with your kids under the age of 12, that's free or low cost, you can follow me on Urban Kid in the City, and you'll see me, living our best life in the city of Houston.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And like Festa said, we are definitely doing a part 2. Me and Festa going back, like, we should talk about this. Yeah, we're going to need more time. In my head, I'm just like, yeah, we're going to need more time. So once again, Dr. Ugochi Emenaha, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Crack of dawn, and we're so thankful because we're thankful because we look fresh. We look fresh, and we're all in our purpose, and we can't wait to do this again.
100%. So we'll close it out. We love to say this. Listen, there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no excuse for not getting an education. I am Festus Amoye. He is Olayinka Sharonke. And thank you so much, Dr. Emenaha, for joining us today for this episode of Game Changers. And make sure you hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening, Spotify, Apple Music.
Tell your friends.
Wherever you're listening. Yeah, tell your friends.
Your
Hit the share button, hit the follow button, and we are out.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.